So the new Modern Warfare just launched, and if you haven't heard, it's bringing back a lot of the old fan base. It's promising a much more visceral experience with reload animations developed with T-Rex arms and gun sounds that are truly immersive. So all this buzz made me a little nostalgic, back to when Modern Warfare was in its prime, when it introduced gun customization to the masses, and when we all collectively wished children would just mute their damn mic. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 simple builds inspired by the franchise. As a disclaimer, I emphasize inspired by. These aren't carbon copies of anything. This is to show you guys what's possible with your guns on a budget with minimal effort. Let's get started. Kicking it off with a nice little SMG, we were inspired by this MP5 seen in the reveal trailer. For a base, we went with a G&G 802. It's a full stock instead of the sliding stock seen in the trailer, but that extra battery space gives you a lot more battery flexibility, and I think it's the better call. The handguard has Picatinny rail instead of the flashlight handguard. Yes, flashlight handguards do exist, but I wanted to recreate that slim look with what we already had, and that means removing those rail segments. Remove the front pin and pivot the handguard down. The rails are held in by hex screws, but the tricky part is there's not enough room to fully turn the Allen key. Once you loosen it enough, you can finish the threads with your fingers. With one side removed, you can stick the Allen key through the screw holes, making it a lot faster. I wanted to remove the bottom rail as well, but it's actually an integral part of the handguard, so I threw on this rail cover that came with the gun. The gun also comes with an included foregrip, but this is the look I was going for. Another reason we went with the 802 is the included top rail, usually an aftermarket accessory. It goes on pretty easy, but a few things to note. Make sure you fully remove all the screws. The little claws need to rotate out of the way or else you'll scratch the body. Before tightening the screws, wiggle it around until it seats into place and then try to level it out. If the rail isn't perfectly flat, you'll never get a good zero. In the same vein, tighten the top screws as you would a car wheel. Tighten them all at the same time, going in a cross pattern, turning each screw a little bit at a time. We wanted to stick with a smaller reflex style sight like the trailer, but decided to change things up a bit with this pretty cool folding sight. The lens folds out of the way when not in use with an included rubber cover. When you need it, simply press the release and the lens springs right up. Moving up front, we needed a big old can and we settled on a G&G OTS suppressor. The included flash hider comes off by releasing this tab, a slight rotation, and then pull to remove. Once you remove the thread protector, it's a standard 14mm counterclockwise thread. Nice. Lots of different suppressor options, this one just fit the look we were going for. Finally, let's talk magazines. We just got in these Cyma straight MP5 Midcaps, which I think have a pretty cool look to them. In the latest Modern Warfare, you can actually change to 10mm straight magazines, which gives the gun a bit more power. It's not going to change anything in airsoft, but I really dig that unique look. We clamped the 2 mags together using G&G's MP5 Mag clamps. Simply release the mechanism, slide in the magazines, and clamp it down. They have a rubber lining so they won't scratch your mags. I've always been a fan of MP5s, and with the ability to thread a longer barrel through that suppressor and also slim, easy to carry magazines, I think this would make a great versatile primary. Next, we have the M14 EBR, an iconic weapon that was featured in a few memorable missions and almost every game in the franchise. A lot of people shelled out serious cash for the WE EBR kit. Cyma's EBR is less than half the price and still features an ultra strong metal chassis and quite a satisfying bolt noise. First up is the stock. The stock is a pretty standard crane stock and in my opinion needs to go. We opted for the Golden Eagle M218 stock, which has a more modern look and comes with a built-in cheek riser, all for 30 bucks. Installation is just removing the old stock by fully pulling down the pin and sliding on the new one. Next up is the optic. I knew I wanted a slightly ridiculous scope to go with a slightly ridiculous gun, so we went with the Lancer Tactical 6-24 times 50mm objective lens scope. It actually has pretty decent eye relief and an illuminated reticle, all for about 75 bucks. The only problem is the objective lens is so big, we need a riser. I'd recommend a riser for an M14 anyway to bridge the gap between the rails so it's a little bit more solid. We chose the NC Star riser, which has a little cutout so you can actually still use the iron sights as well. It's important to loosen the back rail on the M14 as when it's fully tight, it's actually a little slanted. The NC Star riser has a little cut to mesh perfectly with the rear mount, so make sure it's butted up against that. With the scope rings, I like to mount them onto the rail first, removing the top rings and placing the scope on top. Once you're happy with the eye relief and making sure it's aligned properly, I then screw in the top screws. Just like the MP5 top rail, make sure you use a cross pattern, this time screwing both scope rings at the same time. What Modern Warfare inspired EBR would be complete without a giant can on the front? We went with the G&G GOMS MK1, which has a nice detailing that's subtle, but I think complements the EBR aesthetic. Finally, to complete the look, we needed a bipod, and what better than a classic Harris style? This one is made by APS. They're designed to fit on standard bipod studs, but this one comes with a Picatinny adapter. Simply loosen the thumb screw and remove the plastic insert. Clamp it around the stud and tighten the screw until it's locked in. Then install the rail adapter as standard. With all these metal attachments on an already front-heavy gun, this thing is not the most practical, but it's definitely more of a display piece than anything. But man, does this thing have some serious presence. Our last build of the day, here's a more traditional M18 build inspired by promotional artwork for the new game. Our base of choice is the ENC 603 in a nice flat dark earth. First order of business is a foregrip. We went with a QD stubby grip in tan, which installs in seconds. When it comes time to remove, make sure you release the lock or you could damage the mechanism. Next order of business is a PEC box and a suppressor. I know we already did 2 suppressors, but who am I to let this little Mark 18 feel left out? The Xcortech X3300 handles both of those at the same time, and as a bonus, the tan color matches quite nicely. It's a pretty slick wireless unit that has a built-in chronograph, BB counter, and of course tracer. It's a nice option if you like that PEC box look, but already plan to mount a weapon light elsewhere. Speaking of, we went with an X300 style weapon light with a tape switch mounted to the top for ease of ambidextrous activation. Simply replace the end cap with the tape switch cap, attach the tape switch, and zip tie to the top rail. The Mark 18 rail has handy little holes that are perfect for this. Snip off the excess zip tie and tuck in the end for a nice clean look. Finally, for an optic, we opted for a nice micro red dot with 3/4 inch riser that perfectly sits over the PEC box. Personally, I prefer the skeletonized riser over the more common block riser, but it does the same job. We finished it off with a tan blue box mag because color matching, and because blue box mags are still one of the best mid-caps on the market. With the compact attachments and a lot of them being made of polymer, it's still a very lightweight and usable build, but it still has those features a lot of players are looking for. I hope you found this video useful. I wanted to show you guys just how simple it really is to personalize a gun, perhaps based on a build you already use in a game. Have you guys tried the new Modern Warfare? I'm a patient gamer and I'll probably wait for the price to drop, but if you've tried it, let us know what you think down below, and also which of these 3 builds you'd go for. As always, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you on the next one.